A material lighter than wind, softer than clouds, and sold like gold. That fiber is described as warmer than wool, stronger than silk, more precious than cashmere. But have you ever wondered, why can a scarf made from alpaca wool cost thousands of dollars, while the herder receives only pennies per kilo? Is this truly a luxury material, or the product of a masterful pricing art? We will trace the journey of alpaca fiber from the cold highlands of Peru to high-end fashion stores. You will see what happens after an alpaca is shorn, and why fiber that costs less than $5 a kilo can end up in a $3,500 item, and how a seemingly natural fiber is programmed as a brand strategy. If you've ever believed that natural, handmade, ethical is true value, prepare for a different perspective. At the end, we will reveal a pricing trick, something that could change the way you look at all wool items from now on. Don't miss it, because you might be wearing a story, not a material. On the Andes ranges higher than 4,000 meters, where the sun shines fiercely during the day and the temperature drops below 0 degrees at night, alpaca herds have been associated with the indigenous people for centuries. But what few people know is, the majority of global alpaca fiber production starts from these very harsh lands, where shearing is not glamorous with runway lights, but exhausting, dry, and freezing labor. Each year, alpacas are only shorn once, usually at the end of the rainy season, when the weather is warm enough so they don't freeze to death from losing their insulating layer. Sounds simple, but this is not a pleasant job. A mature alpaca is not always cooperative. To shear them, people have to tie their limbs and lay them on their side, in an uncomfortable state lasting from 5 to 10 minutes. Many brands promote this process as humane, traditional, ethical. But have you ever seen 100 alpacas lined up waiting to be shorn in a day? In some regions, the process is still 100% manual. No heating equipment, no shelter, just a pair of scissors, a few tarpaulins, and calloused hands. One man can shear up to 50 animals a day, but his income is only equal to the price of a pair of gloves made from the wool he harvests. We often hear that alpaca fiber is a gift of nature. But when you witness firsthand how they are shorn white amidst the wind and fog, do you still believe that gift is sent with care? And the more paradoxical thing is, this hard work only produces raw material, which is not yet priced. The true value will not be decided here, but in completely different places: processing workshops, weaving mills, and the marketing departments of luxury brands. So after leaving the animal's fleece, where does alpaca fiber go? And what happens when those white fibers enter the bleaching, sorting, grading line to prepare for their journey to become $1,000 products? Let's step into the next part, where value is programmed and softness becomes a pricing strategy. After leaving the body of the animal, alpaca wool does not immediately become the precious fiber, as often imagined. On the contrary, it is sorted, untangled, cleaned, and layered according to a strict, and also contradictory, process. The wool will be carded, inspected by hand, and even by light. Each fiber is assessed by indicators such as fineness, micron, luster, crimp, softness to the touch. Which fiber is called fine, which is coarse, and especially which fiber deserves the title that makes people willing to pay 10 times more: baby alpaca. But this is when the paradox begins to emerge. Baby is not from young animals, but refers to fibers with a diameter smaller than 22 microns, which are softer and smoother to the touch. The problem is, no one knows exactly where that standard originated. No independent organization stands up for global verification. In most weaving mills, the sorter is the seller. The one who decides the label is the one with the power to set the price. So are you wearing baby alpaca, or just believing in a name that sounds soft? And this is when things get interesting. While consumers think they are buying a precious material, a significant portion of baby alpaca on the market is actually blended with wool, blended with nylon, even recycled synthetic fibers. But the label still says baby alpaca. Because according to the law in many countries, as long as 50% or more is real, you have the right to call it that. And if you think real baby alpaca will be produced in a special way, wait for the next part, where the finest fibers will enter the weaving mill, dyeing workshop, and be priced as a luxury item. Except that process doesn't resemble the handmade, indigenous, natural image you see on the advertising cover at all. Millions of kilos of alpaca wool are processed each year, but only a small portion is labeled premium. The rest, despite having a similar origin, will go into ordinary products, never to be called soft gold. So what really makes the difference? Is it the material, or how the brand chooses to tell the story? Next, let's step into the world where price is not based on the fiber, but on how the fashion industry makes you willing to pay. In the fashion industry, there's a simple secret. What you wear is not just material, but a promise about yourself. And that's why a scarf made from fiber costing less than $20 is sold for $500 or more. Here, in the shiny boutiques, alpaca fiber is no longer a product of the highlands. It has been reborn into a feeling, constructed with packaging, the scent of cedar wood, soft lighting, the story of a 4-generation weaving family in Peru. Everything is intentional. The collection name, Spirit of the Andes. The box made of rough organic paper. The handwritten thank you note. You are preserving a piece of living heritage. But have you ever stopped and wondered, was that scarf hand-woven or machine-woven? Is that 4-generation family real or just a stock photo on the brand's Instagram? And if you think the high price is to pay the artisan fairly, keep watching the next part. Because right where the pricing is decided, the creator of the raw material is almost absent. In reality, the cost of fiber, weaving, and packaging sometimes only accounts for 10 to 15% of the selling price. The rest is marketing, brand positioning, shipping, image campaigns, and the feeling consumers are willing to pay. So finally, who is buying alpaca fiber? Or rather, who is buying a luxury version they believe they belong to? Behind that scarf is not just marketing, but also a pricing structure that puts profit before origin. Next, let's step into a paradox. Where is the raw material producer in this multi-million-dollar value chain? The buyer, happy thinking they just chose a sustainable, ethical, traditional product. The seller, smiling, having finished telling a beautiful story. But where is the person who actually shears the alpaca in that picture? In the Peruvian Highlands, the majority of alpaca herders still live below the poverty line. They sell their wool for an average of $1 to $5 per kilogram, even though the finished product can sell for 200 times that price. They don't know their product will become a designer item in Paris, nor are they involved in any stage of the pricing process. And sometimes, they also don't know that their wool is labeled fair trade to reassure buyers. And if you think brands are truly sharing value, stay until the end of the video, where we will dissect the hypocritical ethical programs under the guise of sustainable. Because some ethical labels are printed just to legitimize trust, not change. In many communication campaigns, brands proudly declare that they support the community, protect alpacas, and promote traditional weaving. But ask yourself, if this year's profits have doubled, how has the life of the alpaca herder changed? No reports require them to disclose the percentage of profits that go back to the source. And no one verifies the authenticity of support programs, except for beautiful photos. In a world where every strand of wool is priced by a story, the silence of the producer is the most valuable detail. So, who is truly keeping silent so the product can be sold at a dream price? Looking back at the entire journey from the Peruvian Highlands to a Parisian dressing room, we realize this is not just a material, but a structure, an emotional ecosystem built by brand, by image, and by the very things we choose to believe. People don't buy alpaca because it's the softest fiber, but because it sounds the softest. Not because it's warm, but because it carries the feeling of living right. Right with the environment, right with ethics, right with a better version of themselves. Maybe alpaca really is soft, durable, beautiful, and worthy. But the truth is, without the accompanying story, would you look at it with the same luxurious eyes as you do now? And if even something called soft gold can be created from a marketing fog, how many other premium products around us are defined by feeling? Leave a comment if you've ever bought a sustainable, natural, premium product and then wondered, am I buying trust? And if you are passionate about discovering untold stories, wait until you step into the world behind the reindeer herds running across the white snow of Norway. Because in the next video, we will uncover a profession that seems wild and natural, but operates according to rules that are not as romantic as they appear. Norway and the mysteries behind the reindeer herding industry. A surprising journey where indigenous culture, conservation policies, and commercial pressures collide head-on.